Actually, I think it's a little warmer in here than outside. This is always good. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavad-gita Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavad-gita Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 27th day of March, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 6, Dhyāna-yoga. the yoga of meditation. Text 24 on page 278. Sa nishchayena yoktavyo yogo anirvinna cetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamangs tyakva sarvan asheshataha manasayavendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna cetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamangs tyakva sarvan asheshataha manasayavendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna cetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamangs tyakva sarvan asheshataha manasayavendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. Okay, chant. Sanishtayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna cetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamangs tyakva sarvan asheshataha manasayavendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. Time out. Page 278. 278. Go ahead, Prabhu. Sanishtayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna cetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamangs tyakva sarvan asheshataha manasayavendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. You want to try, Prabhu? Sanishtayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna cetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamangs tyakva sarvan asheshataha manasayavendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. Anyone online?
Sanishtayena yoktavyo
Sanishtayena yoktavyo
yogo anirvinna cetasa
yogo nirvinna cetasa
sankalpa prabhavan kamams
sankalpa prabhavan kamangs
tyakva sarvan asheshataha
tyakva sarvan asheshataha
manasayavendriya gramam
manasayavendriya gramam
viniyamya samantataha.
viniyamya samantataha. Word by words, I'll just read along silently. Sa, that nishchayena, with firm determination, yoktavyaha, must be practiced. Yogaha, yoga system, anirvinna cetasa, without deviation. Sankalpa, mental speculations. Prabhavan, born of, kaman, material desires. Tyaktva, giving up, sarvan, all, asheshataha, completely. Manasa, by the mind. Eva, certainly. Indriya, gramam, the full set of senses. Viniyamya, regulating. Samantataha, from all sides. Translation. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Purport. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue the course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner. Regarding bhakti-yoga, Rupa Goswami says, Utsahan nishchayat dharyat tat karma pavartanat sanga tyagat sato vritte shadbir bhakti prasiddhyati. One can execute the process of bhakti-yoga successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination, by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees, and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. Upadeshamrita 3. As for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow, who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activities spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this, and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti-yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job. But if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. Om jnana timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So there's a very important lesson here in the purport. Prabhupada's talking about determination, which is one of the prerequisites for success in any yoga, and including Ashtanga yoga, but also in Bhakti yoga. And that is the idea that in Ashtanga yoga, Dhyāna-yoga, the motivations are kind of mixed often. One can practice Ashtanga yoga in order to get the siddhis, the powers of yoga. And I tell some stories, and many stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam, of yogis who were completely materially motivated. Durvasa Muni is the famous one. Durvasa Muni, for years I thought that Durvasa was a polite way of saying that his clothes were a long way off. In other words, he was naked. But that's not what it means. It means that he's very difficult to live with. He's so, his personality is such. And his exploits, the story of Ambarish, you know, Maharaj is a perfect example where he became envious. Here's this accomplished yogi, you know, with thousands and thousands of disciples and so many siddhis, and he's not getting as much honor as King Ambarish. He's an ordinary king, after all. You know, you have the hierarchy of the Brahmins, and of course the yogis are all in Brahminical state. And here's this Kshatriya who's busy with running a kingdom. And why do people honor him so much? Just because he's a bhakta? You know, this is Durvasa Muni. So I'm not going to tell the whole story again, but he challenged him during Ekadashi. He had a plan that where the king was caught in a dilemma, because as we know, if you're here in the morning, that there's an interval that's proper to break Ekadashi in the next day. In other words, strictly you fast. You fast all day, even from water and through the night, and you don't go to sleep, and you just stay awake as a yogi, but you chant Hare Krishna. And then the next day, there's a certain period when it's proper to break the fast. We even do that here. It's on our calendar. So that was the device in which Durvasa challenged Ambarish. he purposely came there to Ambarish's place because Ambarish was very strict in the practice of Ekadashi. Shortly before it was time to break the fast. And of course, Ambarish invited the great yogi to join him in the repast to break the Ekadashi fast, and Dravasa agreed. But as is the custom even today, when after a long trip you take a bath and bathe before having a meal, you know, when you get to your destination. So he went in and had a bath, you know, in the river, and he purposely loitered in the river till the time for breaking the fast was almost expired. So he put Ambarish in a dilemma. Was he going to delay and break the fast too late, thus offending the Lord, or was he going to break the fast early and thus offend his honored guest, because it's a strict etiquette that you don't, if a guest comes, you don't eat before him, and then, you know. So what to do? So he consulted his Brahmin council, and they couldn't really help him, so he came up with the idea, well, I'll just drink some water. Water is breaking the fast and not breaking the fast. So I'm not really dishonoring my guest by eating, you know, but at the same time, I'm not dishonoring the Lord by not breaking the fast. So that seemed a reasonable thing, and he drank a little water. So Dravasa knew something like that would happen. He came out and you've eaten, you've broken the fast, you've taken breakfast before your guest. This is a great offense. So he created a big Kṛṣṇa. I looked up this Kṛṣṇa. It's a female fiery demoness who can burn anyone who the master wants it to burn. So he told the demoness, you go and incinerate Ambarish. Kind of an overreaction for taking work. So, well, what was Ambarish? So the amazing thing is Ambarish's reaction. It's described in the purport. Everything is whole, you know. Savai Muna Krishna Badada Bindayo Bachangsi Vai Kundaganano. There's 3 or 4 verses there. He fixed his mind on the Lord. And his words were all used to glorify the Lord. His hands were used to clean the temple, his feet to walk to the temple, his tongue to taste the prasadam with tulsi leaves. Every sense was engaged. In other words, he was completely pure, even though a king. So Ambarish didn't budge. You know, the demons coming at him. He just prayed, if this is Krishna's will, you know, let me just remember this is some punishment. From, you know. So in other words, he was completely at peace, even though he's being threatened by fiery death. So Krishna's chakra came, you know, and annihilated the demoness, saved Ambarish, and then went after Dravasa. Now what did Dravasa do? He didn't say, oh, this is how auspicious to be killed by Krishna's weapon, Hare Krishna. No, he ran. He ran means he took off with his yogic powers. He's flying through the sky. And he came to Shiva and said, please help me, save me. What can I do? This is Lord Vishnu's chakra. He went to Brahma, same answer. He finally went all the way up to Vaikuntha and fell at the feet of Narayan and said, please call off your chakra. And he said, I can't do it. I'm not independent. I'm under the control of my devotees. You have to go back down to Ambarish and beg his forgiveness. Okay, I'll do anything. So he goes down. So Ambarish, of course, of course. And he prayed to the chakra to please relieve, you know, showing the power of bhakti. So back to the verse now. It's all about determination, right? And Prabhupada very cogently quotes the verse from the Upadeshamrita. Now what does Upadeshamrita mean? Upadeshamrita means the nectar of all instruction, the nectar of instruction, the essential instruction for bhaktas. And this is the 3rd verse. The 2nd verse describes things we have to avoid that'll destroy our bhakti. Atyahara priyasascha pradalpo niyamagraha janasangasta laulyancha shadbhi bhaktir pranashiti. Over-collecting, overeating, priyasas, too much hard work for material goals, prajalpa, too much talking about mundane topics, talking or hearing. Niyamagraha. Niyamagraha has 2 meanings. So these actually 6 things split into 8. Niyamagraha, it can be niyama-agraha or niyama-agraha. You know, the way that there's something called sandhi in Sanskrit. We can learn what that is today. Where 2 words merge, with the end and the beginning of another word. So there's Sunday rule. So the rule is if one word ends in A and the next word begins in A, then they merge and become a long A. But you don't know if the second word began with a short A or a long A. So it can be niyama agraha or niyama agraha, and they have different meanings. Niyama agraha means that you fail to perform the regulated principles of bhakti. Obviously, that's going to be a cause of fall down. But it's also a cause of fall down to go through the motions of performing, but your heart isn't in it. In other words, your mind could be somewhere else, or you could doubt the efficacy of it, and you're just kind of there. You see, that's also a cause of fall down, you can imagine. So, Janasangas Chalalyam. Janasanga means association with ordinary people. Sadhu Sangha is the cause of advancement. Sadhu Sangha is essential. That association with the sadhus, with devotees, especially very advanced devotees. But association with non-devotees is a cause of losing your interest in devotional service. It all depends on association, who you choose to associate with. And Chaharapriya Prajalpo Niyama Janasangas Laulyam. Laulyam is just maintaining the strong desire for something that's not in the program of bhakti, even though you don't get it. In other words, everything depends on your desire. You were cultivating pure desire, and we're trying to eradicate or not feed the material desires. So laulyam is just the opposite. Oh, if I only had that, I would be happy, you know, some material thing. That's not Krishna consciousness. That's blocking Krishna consciousness. And laulyam cha, janasangas laulyam should be bhakti pranasya. These 6 things block devotional service. So then the next verse is one that Prabhupada quotes. On the other hand, what is it that prasiddhyati, one is pranashyati, is completely destroyed, and this prasiddhyati completely helps. The first thing is enthusiasm. And our old temple president, Mahatattva, who's been a sannyasi for some years now, is Bhaktiyananda Tirtha Swami. He would use this phrase, which needs a little interpretation. Fake it till you make it. You know, so faking it sounds like that's not any bhakti. You know, you're sincerely trying to do something, but you haven't really achieved it yet. In other words, I remember long ago, I was still in the Brooklyn Temple, and one devotee came who later became very successful, became a sannyasi, even had some disciples, and eventually left. But that was many years later. So he's a bhakti, he's a new man, you know. And the kirtan is going on, and everyone's starting to jump up and down because we were all much younger then, you know. The average age was 22, 23, you know. Now there's some old legs in there. But so I was jumping up and I was looking at my bhakta, and he was standing there, you know, he's chanting Hare Krishna. So I encouraged him to dance. He said, well, I just don't feel like this. Feel it or not, you do it, and after a short while you feel like doing it. And that's plays to what Prabhupada mentioned at the end here, that Krishna is helping. In other words, this is the difference between the Ashtanga yogi who's, you know, after the siddhis or after something, some material thing, although it may be refined. Even mukti is ultimately a material desire. Mukti means I want to be free from birth, old age, disease, and death. Prahlad Maharaj, he criticizes that those who are simply after their own liberation don't care about anyone else. Prayena Deva Munayo Swava Mukti Kama. That very phrase, Swava Mukti Kama, tells the whole story. Mukti Kama. Kama means material desire in its broadest sense, strong material desire. And of course it's come to mean sex desire. That's a very important one, but it's not the only one. You can also be very, very desirous of your own safety and your own deliverance, and the hell with everyone else. That's not bhakti. You know, that's a material desire. That's an attachment. So Swava Mukti Kama. Strong, ardent desire for one's own deliverance. So Prahlad has this classic verse in his prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev, which we're going to come on soon enter in the weeks to come as we read the morning class. It's all about Prahlad Maharaj, and eventually Nrsimhadev will appear. So he says, Prayena Deva, for the most part, Spayena Deva Muniyo, the sages, the learned soul, the munis, you know. But Muni, he calls them Munis, there's a nice inference there. Munis means those who don't talk. It comes from the word mauna, which means silence. So better than talk about nonsense, that's prajalpa, that's something we don't, you know, ordinary things, then be silent. But if you know anything about Krishna, shouted from the rooftops. Devotees are anything but silent. Prabhupada was the last one to be silent. He'd get up in the middle of the night and dictate his books, and then eventually the morning would come, he would chant japa, and then he would meet with devotees, he would meet with, we'd have class. He's always glorifying Krishna. Kirtaniya sada hari is the phrase. So that's the most important kind of silence. It's silence for material sound vibration, but it's morning till night with spiritual sound vibration. That's the bhakta. So prayande munyo swavamukti kama maunam charanti vijane. They wander where there's no people. In other words, in the hills, the mountains, Himalayas, forest somewhere. Napararta nishta. Now, these words are compact, but they're full of meaning. Para arta nishta means determined to help others. Para means can mean different things, but in this case it means other people. In other words, to help others, I'm liberated, but why should I be liberated alone? Let me stay in the crowded cities and try to liberate them. But only the devotees can stay in the hubble bubble, as Prabhupada calls it, of a big city, and still remain fixed in yoga, because Krishna consciousness is so powerful. But these Ashtanga yogis who require the quiet, the environment without any distraction to advance, they're not as strong yogis. Prabhupada's walking down into Times Square. Now, I knew Times Square back in the day, in the mid-'60s. It wasn't like it is today. It was turned into a little bit of a Disneyland. It had a facelift. I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. But when I knew it, it was always a very tacky place with all kinds of movie theaters showing, red light movies, And Prabhupada's walking there, and he's looking for a bookstore where he can put his books. He's not affected by the environment at all. He's so powerful. So that's the difference between the strong bhakti yogi. So, Svavamukti maunam bhajane napararta nishta. But so then he said, this is the general tendency for the transcendentalists. But I'm not like that, Prahlad says famously. Naitan vihaya kripana vimamuksha eko. Again, he read it. Vimamuksha eko means to be liberated alone, for my own liberation. Naitan vihaya, I can't give up these people, who have no Krishna consciousness, who are just ignorant and suffering and headed for birth and death. Naitan vihaya kripana, these kripanas, miserly people, vimamuksha eko, just wanting my own liberation, because nanyam tvarasi shadanam brahmato anupashe. For these people wandering in the material world, I see no other shelter but you, my Lord. Don't forget, he's preaching, he's praying to the Lord Nrsimhadev, who just killed Hiranyakashipu, and now has finally been pacified because his beloved Prahlad has come to offer prayers. The great demigods, Shiva, Brahma, Lakshmi, his consort, they were also offering prayers from a great distance because he was raging. They weren't confident that their prayers would actually pacify him, and he wasn't pacified. So finally they said, Prahlad, he likes you so much. You go, see if you could do it. Little boy, 5-year-old. He walks right up to Prahlad, to Nrsimhadev, offers obeisance, and starts offering the prayers. And Nrsimhadev is pacified. There's this Komala. Komala means gentle. Komala Nrsimha. The gentle Nrsimha, because so often we see Nrsimha furious, very angry at Hiranyakashipu and his whole army, and he's raging, blood's everywhere. And Antarmali, I taught you what Antarmali. Do you know what Antarmali means? There was a devotee in Brooklyn when I joined. Eventually he got the name Antarmali. No one knew what it meant, actually, but we called him Antarmali. So Antar means innards, what's inside, and Mali is a garland. So he's wearing the garland of Hiranyakashipu's intestines. He's disemboweled, and that's why you don't see those pictures in the temples, especially in L.A. You'll see the picture, the famous painting of Hiranyakashipu on the lap, there's blood everywhere. Because people come who don't know anything about Krishna consciousness, what is this? Oh my God, But anyway, it's all auspicious. So Antarmali, he's there, but he became pacified. So Prahlad is saying, Naitan vihaya kripanan, I cannot leave these poor souls aside, because I know there's no one else but you who can save them, and I have to be your intermediary and give them you. This is what a preacher of Krishna consciousness is. They're just giving Krishna. They're not giving their own, you know. But the intermediary is important, that you make progress by finding a Mahabhagavat, a soul who who you trust to give you good advice and won't betray you. And then you surrender. It means that you follow its instructions, even though it may go against your own material. This was Arjuna's problem. He's got the greatest. Welcome, Hare Krishna. Did you get the page number? Okay. Arjuna had the greatest guru, and he surrenders at the beginning. At first, he was just talking friend to friend, and he was, more or less arguing with Krishna. But then he realized that's not getting him anywhere, so he surrenders to Krishna, and he says, I don't know what real Dharma is, I'm confused, and so now I surrender to you. Please tell me for sure how I can achieve Shreya, the ultimate good, for myself and everyone else. This is the proper attitude, And then Krishna starts speaking to him as a guru, and he chastises him. Ashocana vashotas tram pragyavarang sabhashase. You're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief, namely this physical body, and you're talking learned words like a pundit, Ashocana pragyavarang gatasuna gatasuncha nanushocati. Pandita, real pundits, they don't lament for the body, living or dead. They know that this is just the external covering of the soul, and they try to instruct the person to get on the spiritual platform and act on that basis. And that's what Arjuna eventually does. He says, yes, whether I've won to materially or not, I'm going to fight because you want me to fight, and that's my constitutional position, to act according to your desire. So back to our verse here. Enthusiasm, determination, and patience. These are like the formula. Why enthusiasm has to be there, otherwise the modes of nature will take over. So anyway, to continue the story, which I interrupted, I told the bhakta to dance anyway, and you'll see after a little while, you'll feel like dancing. You'll feel excited dancing. Why? Because Krishna's inside your heart. He's pleased. Way back in the second chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are about, I think, 19 verses from the first chapter, first canto, second chapter, text 6 through text 21. I guess there's more like 15, 16 verses. And near the end there's 5 verses that exactly touch on this point, how Krishna helps from within the heart. If you're hearing about him with interest, you're making an effort to really hear. So, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna. So Prabhupada points out, Krishna is the subject of the sentence. He uses the word nominative. So Krishna, Swakata, his own kata, is hearing. This soul is now hearing about me. He's eager to hear about me. He's in the heart, after all. He knows exactly what we're doing, what we're thinking. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna. And what about that Swakata or Krishna Kata? Punya Shavana Kirtana, which you become pious just hearing and chanting it. You don't have to perform any elaborate sacrifices, call so many brahmanas and buy so much ghee. No, the sacrifice of hearing about Krishna with attention and eagerness is so potent that Krishna within the heart, he blesses us. How? Ridyantaksto abadhani vidunoti. The word vidunoti means to cleanse. The whole problem we have as conditioned souls is that our consciousness has been contaminated, polluted by material thoughts, material desires, material fears in the modes of nature. This is all unnatural. We are not our minds either. We're not our gross body, obviously, but we're also not the mind. So the mind is especially a human mind, is our way of deliverance or our way of degradation. Remember the earlier chapter, the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy of the living entity. So what we do with our mind is key in any yoga. And in what forms the thoughts of the mind? Nothing more powerfully than what you hear and what you chant, what you read and what you write, but even more importantly, what you hear and what you chant. So Krishna hears, you understand perfectly that they're actually hearing about me with some interest, and pure sound vibrations. Okay, let me start cleaning out the anarthas, or the the abhadras, the things which are inauspicious that are in the heart. Material desires, the fears, the aspirations, the false, philosophical conclusions that how can there be a God? There's no God. I mean, it's obviously a blockage to any bhakti. So all these things he starts cleaning, just like Lord Chaitanya, Chaito Darbana Marjanam. Which means the congregational chanting is a powerful way to clean the mirror of the heart, so one can see oneself as a spiritual being and see the Lord in there. So what happens? Abadani vidunoti surit satam. Such an important phrase. Surit. Surit means the ever well-wishing friend. And that just like we have in Sanskrit, there's different levels of friendship. The mitra, the bandhu, and the surit. The surit is like what we might call a bosom buddy, the ever well-wisher. That ever well-wisher word, Prabhupada always signed his letters. That's the nature of Krishna. He's always wishing us well. He doesn't want us to suffer. But because we're so obstinate, we need to experience the suffering so that we want to get out of here. Because we're long separated from Krishna in the spiritual world. He wants us back. We're all his beloved sons, his children. And we have forgotten it for so long that he wants us back and to join him in his pastimes in the spiritual world. There's always room for one more in the dancing party. There's no limit. So it's a time. So what happens by that as we persistently hear? If you think about it, the whole morning program, our whole life as bhaktas is filled with this hearing and chanting. It's beginning with the Hare Krishna mantra, of course, but all these wonderful vibrations from the Bhagavatam and the Guru Vashtaka song, and it's all pure sound vibration, which is so purifying. So all of that simply awakens what's already there. It purifies the heart to the degree where the real love for God eventually blossoms forth. It's like a creeper that's being watered by this transcendental sound in the association of devotees. So. But we have to have enthusiasm because we're so conditioned that we're not spontaneously attracted to these things. So understanding the intelligence is above the mind. The intelligence is, okay, mind, I don't care if you're bored, so-called bored, or you don't want to do it anyway, and listen to this vibration and you repeat this, and eventually the natural taste awakens for hearing, for chanting, for serving. So that's utsahan nishtaya. You have to have determination, enthusiasm, and you have to be patient because it may take some time. And then the first three words, you can ask enthusiastic for what, determined for what, and patient why. And the next phrase answers it. Tat tat karma pravartanat. You have to be enthusiastic in executing all the different activities of devotional service. That's what karma pravartanat means. Tat tat means, And you have to be determined in doing those things and patient that you'll eventually get the result. And then what will impede that? Asatsanga. Asatsanga. We know satsanga is so important, right? It's an English word, I'm sure, for many, many years. Satsang. Right? Satsang. So sangha can mean association or attachment. This is classic in Sanskrit, if you notice it, that the two words, one means something and the other means the result of that thing. Just like the word gati we sing in the morning, both the main songs we sing have that word gati in it. So gati can be the goal that you want to reach, but it also means the means to reach the goal. So what is Sri Guru Chadanarati Ese Uttama Gati? Attraction for the lotus feet of the Guru is the ultimate means of advancement. Why? Because you're proceeding not just on the basis of what you know intellectually, this is good for me, but out of real love and affection. This is how Prabhupada's movement exploded. Because the devotees would come near him, they would chant and hear, they would feel the result, and a lot of their affection was also directed toward him, who had given this wonderful process of chanting, which anyone can do, and it bears these results very quickly if you are determined and enthusiastic, So they wanted to please Prabhupada. That's the affection. Because what had he done? Someone who risks his life at that age, comes to give you this invaluable gift. It's just like right in the mood of Prahlad. I can't abandon these fools and rascals in the big cities. He could have stayed in Vrindavan like all of his godbrothers, and had his nice temple there, his quarters in the Radha Damodar temple, most auspicious place. Chant Hare Krishna, bathe in the Ganges every morning and go back, But no, he had the urgency of his spiritual master's order to carry this treasure of Krishna consciousness abroad and to help fulfill Lord Chaitanya's prediction. Priti biti achayata yadarati gram sarvata prachar hobe modanam. Lord Chaitanya predicted in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, the companion book, biography of him by Vrindavandas Thakur. My name will be sung in all the towns and villages all over the world. Well, how's that going to happen unless his representatives go to those towns and villages and make the sacrifice? So Prabhupada did it under the order of his spiritual master and by the inspiration of Lord Chaitanya. And somehow or other, he planted that seed in some sincere hearts in New York City. And everything started to grow after that, amazingly. So that Prabhupada does fulfill that. So Sangha Tyaga, but it's important not only to associate with devotees, but to disassociate from non-devotees. And that means mostly hearing. Don't hear from them. And Shadbir Bhakti Prasiddhiti, these 6 things, there's 6 things, it furthers devotion, it feeds, it nourishes devotion. So we should know this book. You can read especially the first 8 verses. Then it gets into some very esoteric things about Radhakund and Vrindavan, which are important, but they're kind of, it's amazing. With 11 verses, small little book, he takes us all the way from the first verse, who to choose as a spiritual master, which is essential. And he gives a verse which describes what things that you can see. You don't have to know, really hear, does he know this, does he know this? What is that? Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam jihva vegam madoropesta vegam etan vegam yofashaheta dira sarvamapi man pratabingsa shishyat. So the first thing is vacho vegam, the urge to speak. If someone is speaking all kinds of nonsense, not glorifying Krishna, but whatever, and the standards, okay, well, this person is not going to give me Krishna consciousness, So the urge to speak, manasa vegam, the urges of the mind, and anger. Someone can't control their anger and stuff. It's easy to see. And then there's even more obvious things. Jiva vegam, the urge of the tongue. If someone is very too fat, they're eating too much. Even if he has long hair and a beard, he's chanting Sanskrit. Probably not good. Can't control the tongue. That's the basic. You mutter udara and the belly and genitals, so these things can become very obvious. So anyway, it's a very important book, and we have it for sale. It's worth millions of times more than what you pay for it. $2? Come on. So anyway, then there's a wonderful example of determination. This little bird, of course, is doing something impossible, but he showed the determination to save his eggs. Garuda came. And Garuda is empowered. He could have dried up the whole ocean, so it was successful. So the idea is that Krishna will help us. If we take Prabhupada famously said, if you take 1 step toward Krishna, he'll take 10 steps toward you. He sees, oh, this person is genuinely interested in my service. Let me arrange that he meets this devotee that and you see the wonderful stories is Vijay Prabhu, who is actually not the minister of Sankirtan anymore. He gave that position over to Vaisheshika, minister of book distribution, but he's still, very influential. And he has this email group, and he gets these stories from around the world, and then he'll post them. Amazing stories of devotees going out and somehow meeting someone who is just looking for a Bhagavad Gita. They knock on a door, and the person bursts into, would you like to take this Bhagavad Gita? And she starts crying. She had a dream that she needed the Bhagavad Gita. And this is it's amazing stories. Talk about Krishna taking a hand in someone's desire. So that's the great advantage of the bhaktas, is that they may not be qualified. I'm not born in a Brahmin family. I wasn't trained anything. But I had a desire, an attraction for the holy name, and Krishna, guided me in such a way that this is my. I'm not saying it's any great achievement, but it's 51 years to the day when I actually joined the temple in Brooklyn. 51 years. Today, March 27th. I moved in March 27th, 1973. So, all right, let's go on. Shanai Shanai Upanamed Buddhya dviti grihitaya atmasangstam manakritva nakinchid napichintayet. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Notice the cap S, self. It could have been in lowercase. I think it was. We made it cap S. It's the super soul. Purport. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. That's one of the 8 steps in Ashtanga Yoga. The mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation from the senses should be situated in trance or samadhi. At that time, there is no longer any danger of becoming engaged in the material conception of life. In other words, although one is involved with matter as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. Now this calls to mind this key verse in the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. Near the beginning, naturally, describing what is it we're trying to achieve here. What is the ultimate goal? Anyabhilashita shunyam, not shunyam, but shunyam. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma jnanavritam anukulena Kṛṣṇanuṣīlanam bhaktir uttama. This is the definition of uttama bhakti, pure devotion, which is the goal in Krishna consciousness. So what isn't it? What is it not first? Anya abhilashita shunyam, devoid of other desires. And it will describe other than what. But then the next verse he describes the examples of those desires. Jnana karma dhyāna-avritam. So jnana and karma and adi. Now adi means etc. So jnana, the word jnana indicates here mental speculation and knowledge to get liberation. This is what the Mayavadis are doing. Their whole sadhana is study Vedanta Sutra and discuss it and and think about it and then try to. That's it. So that's jnana, and karma is ordinary fruit of activities we're very familiar with, etc. Not covered, not obscured by that, because you can practice bhakti, but your real motive is material advancement. Your real motive is name and fame. I'm going to become famous as a famous bhakta. And then I'll be set. People will worship me and give me things. Hare Krishna. That's not pure devotion. You may fool a few people like that, but anavritam. So that's what it isn't. What is it? Anukulena Kṛṣṇanuṣīlanam. Always acting favorably for Krishna's pleasure. That's what Arjuna couldn't do at first, right? Krishna's pleasure was, you fight. He said, no, I don't want to fight. There's my beloved guru and all my relatives on the other side and friends. I can't do it, So he needed to be, reformed. It was all a game. I mean, he's a pure devotee, he's an eternal, friend of Krishna. But Krishna put him into this illusion so the Gita could be spoken for everyone's benefit. So Anukulena Kṛṣṇanuṣīlanam bhaktir uttama. Now this verse has a corresponding little phrase. It's not even a verse, written by Jiva Goswami, who was kind of a disciple of Rupa Goswami, nephew, great soul on his own. And he wrote this, which I discovered long ago, shortly after I joined, reading the second canto in a purport to, I think it's this, I forget the reference, but this famous akama sabakama vamokshakama udadadi. Whether you're full of desire or you have no desire, you desire liberation, you should still practice intense devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul. So in the purport there, here's the Sanskrit, which I'm not necessary to memorize, but it's so concise and wonderful. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukha matra swasukhatvam. The whole essence of bhakti is in that little phrase. So bhajaniya means the worshipable, padama purusha means the worshipable supreme person. That's Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukha matra. Only his happiness. Only, Matra means alone. Bhajaniya padama sukha matra swasukhatvam. To take one's own happiness and one's own joy only in furthering the happiness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the essence of it. Now that in our conditioned state, we say, well, what about my happiness? How do I get? In other words, is that possible? And it is possible, because we're part and parcel of Krishna. So when we give him pleasure, we experience spiritual pleasure, and that every devotee can experience that even without thinking about it. Especially like big festivals, when everyone's got to work so hard, the Rath Yatra festival, put it on, and you work in there, you see the result, and thousands of people dancing and chanting. This is an LA Rath Yatra, or the early Rath Yatras in San Francisco. 1970 Rath Yatra, Prabhupada was there, and there's like, literally thousands of hippies, and people of that age following the carts, And then, Jayananda, who was famous for helping to put on building the carts, Mr. Rath Yatra, he's in total ecstasy, and all the other devotees who helped put it on. Just by other people being happy, because that's so pleasing to Lord Jagannath. And you can tell Lord Jagannath is happy. When is he frowning, right? I mean, so and there it is. That's bhajaniya padama purusha sukha matvasa sukhatva. You're yourself becoming exhausted. You hardly have time to take a little prasadam. All day you're serving out prasadam, cooking prasadam, chanting Hare Krishna, giving out books. Whew, what a day! And I didn't make any money. But it's all good. You see. So that's the essence of what we're doing. To take one's pleasure in the pleasure of the Lord, realizing that we're part and parcel of the Lord, and He's giving us that bliss from inside the heart, because He sees how happy we are in serving Him. Not the senses, using the very same senses that we can try to satisfy ourselves, to satisfy His senses, and then it becomes a source of, it doesn't end. There's no need for it to end. Even if you're exhausted, you're lying down on your bunk at the end of the day, you can still chant Hare Krishna in your mind. You can remember the deity, you know what I mean? You have the source of pleasure within you. You don't need all of this paraphernalia, which ultimately is just a great burden on the soul. So that's, let's see, where were we?
Almost 26.
I'm sorry?
At the end of 25.
At the end of 25. Okay. I think it's almost time. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't get, yes. Go ahead, one question. We need to, Mike, get one of those mics. See them over there?
Thanks, Chad.
Okay, hurry up, because it's 8:09.
So at the beginning you talked about over-collection. Is that what we think it is?
Yep. The principle of bhakti, it's really that whatever you have, you give it over to Krishna. The possessiveness, the things that we possess, that for our own self, these are the things that keep us coming back, because they're desires that aren't in the realm of desiring to serve Krishna. That's why in the old days, Prabhupada came to America, and there was all of these hippies who really didn't have anything anyway, And so when you say, well, surrender everything, well, just join the temple and dance and chant and help, the temple go on, and they cannot over collecting. But as time went on, it became possible to take the skill that you develop distributing Prabhupada's books, and just take it a step this way, and you're selling hats, you're selling trinkets on the street, and trying to support yourself that way, and you're not chanting so much anymore. You see what I'm saying? So that's a real important part of it, to understand the first mantra of the Ishopanishad, Ishavashamidam Sarvam, everything belongs to God. We're entitled to have the portion for our own maintenance and keep body and soul together. But whatever you have that's beyond that, and what America is built on, capitalist system, pile up as much money as you can, buy this, buy that, buy it on credit, go into debt. And in this way, by all these things and all these possessions, I'll be happy. But people become miserable that way. So it's basically living as simply as possible. Don't need too less, don't need too more. In other words, moderate. But whatever you have that can be used by Krishna, try to engage in Krishna's service, and it'll make you blissful.
But that seems to get kind of complicated, especially here in America, in the sense that you establish a certain station in life, and then you get a promotion, and then you establish a different station in life. And so maybe you're over collecting by some standards, but by other standards, maybe you're trying to give your wife and your children a better life. And so it gets kind of confusing, and I find it difficult to kind of understand.
It's hard, much harder, you know, when it's possible. It's very, you know, to lead a Krishna conscious family life when you center it on your life on Krishna. We have such wonderful examples here. Gaur-Keshava, you know, you see them, and his wife and his 2 kids. They're being raised with Krishna in the center. You go to their house, they have this big altar, you know, and they're cooking in there. So and the kids are getting an education, but the understanding is, you know, they're getting also a Krishna conscious education, so they don't get swept away by, you know, these things. It's difficult, and that's why in the Bhagavatam you find so much warning against the blind well, deep dark well of materialistic family life, because that's usually where a lot of attachments are formed, and they can, you know, just keep you coming back in life after life. So that's there. Yes, it's difficult. That's why, you know, Prabhupada was so happy to find some young people who hadn't yet made that step. You know, they hadn't really, they were able to become renounced. They became brahmacharis even at an elder age. And some took sannyas and they became leaders in the movement, you know, and they were able to spread it. So that's why with sahanishayat dharyat, you have to have determination, because the attachments are there, and the later, that's why, you know, training the youth, you know, before these attachments are formed, you can, it's very effective. We got to stop because they're going to have a kirtan. All right, God glory to Srila Prabhupada.
I have one more, but maybe I could save it for
after the kirtan, we can do. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Huh? No, I don't have time.